Hello, citizens of tomorrow. Welcome to the Space Hangout. My name is Space Mike, and we are joined today by our very own Jared Head, Ryan Caton, and Dutta, the ghost hosts. And we have a very exciting week for you ahead. It seems like every week there's always so much stuff crazy going on, but this week we have Crew-8 finally was able to come and splash down. We're going to talk about that. We got a really rare update from Roscosmos talking about some of their updates on their next crew capsule, which is surprising. And there has been quite a few Starship updates. It looks like that we might see another flight a lot sooner than Levis thought. And of course, the big thing that we wanted to talk about this week is a very well-known company looks to be selling off some of their space business. So first, let's talk about some of the good news and some of the exciting stuff with the Crew-8 mission that was able to return. This is the splashdown, infrared footage of the splashdown of it. And we had quite a few delays of this splashdown because there were issues with the weather. They wanted to make sure that weather was good enough so that they could recover this capsule in the Gulf of Mexico. So that was able to come down. And Jared, you wanted to talk a little bit about some of the health stuff with these guys. Can you tell us a little bit about what we've know so far about what happened to some of the astronauts?
Yeah, well, so far, what we know is that there was a nominal reentry and splashdown for the Crew-8 crew in their space Crew Dragon capsule. Man, try to say that all 10 times fast. And of course, on board we had Commander Matthew Dominic Pike, pilot Michael Barrett. My lips are going to catch up at some point today. Astronaut Jeanette Epps, and then Russ cosmonaut Alexander Grebenkin. All four of them coming down nominally throughout that. They took the time to make sure that any toxic propellants being vented overboard dissipated, and then they were all brought on board. They are wheeled out and put onto stretchers, which is standard operating procedure, by the way. So that's normal for our Crew Dragon crews on return after a long duration stay, which they had done a extended 235-day expedition to the International Space Station. But a very interesting thing occurred afterwards, which is about 4 to 6 hours after splashdown. It had been reported that all four of the crew members were taken to a local medical facility for additional evaluation with the quotes, out of an abundance of caution, in addition to that. They were taken to Ascension Sacred Heart Pensacola Hospital there. After some medical checks, 3 of the crew members were discharged and took a Gulfstream jet back to Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. But one of them stayed behind for additional observation and recovery out of an abundance of caution. So, as to who that was or what has occurred to that crew member, there is no news on that yet. And NASA says that it is out of medical privacy, which is understandable. Obviously, right. I would not want my medical stuff being thrown out in front of the world. It's really weird to me because, we're in the World Series right now, and one of the big players on one of the teams got hurt last night, and you almost immediately heard about what his injury was. So I guess if you're an astronaut, you get privacy with your medical conditions and things like that. But just interesting that this kind of came out, and then we really haven't heard much since then about the medical condition of this astronaut.
I think if it's relevant to the performance of their job and their duties, it's I wouldn't say fair game, but at least most institutions do their best to keep people informed as to how that relates to them being able to do their job. So, Fernando Alonso had an illness prior to the Mexican GP, so there was, he couldn't join, so he had a replacement. Did they say what it was? Not really relevant. He just wasn't there. But we know that it was medical related. And, obviously, like baseball players, football players, if they tear a ligament, then there's a reason they can't run. If there's a dislocated shoulder, there's a reason they can't pitch, right? So how it affects the performance of their job, I think, is relevant to whether or not that kind of information is released, and if this medical issue is not affecting them doing their job, post mission break debriefs and stuff like that, then it's none of our business.
And something that I think that, I mean, this is pretty standard procedure for them to go to hospitals, especially after a long duration flight like this. And even having whoever stayed behind, something that was good about that is that they were released the next day. So yes, one astronaut did stay behind at the hospital. Oh yeah, there we go. Pauline Brock. The astronaut was discharged and went to Houston, according to NASA on X. So yeah, they only stayed behind for one day, so everything is probably fine, and we can be confident that they, didn't have any sort of serious injuries. And what we mean is that when they're up there in space for so long, they can have bone density loss, and there's things they do to mitigate that. But even so, they can still have a hard time, and potentially have some issues for a while. And lots of astronauts say that it takes weeks, even months to get back up to 100% physically. So
it turns out that flying in space, and particularly the transition from being in 0G to 1G, is hell on your body.
Who would have thought?
I didn't know this. I was unaware.
Oh, man. Well, it's still great to see that these Crew Dragon missions are going off successfully, and that everyone at NASA has a high amount of confidence in them. And do we want to talk about some of the updates on Russia? Ryan, I know that you were excited about this. This is something I've been following for a long time. I'm excited about it as well. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened there?
So I'm not sure if it was really out of the blue, but certainly, updates from Roscosmos on Oriole, which is their new crew capsule. And I do new like this because it's been new for about 15 or 20 years at this point. It's still in development, but we got some new photos. So they have made progress, but they haven't made a lot of progress. Let's put it that way. It looks better than what it did the last time we saw it, but they haven't made, as much progress as you would want to see for this new crewed spacecraft to be flying relatively soon. So it still appears that we're, kind of the 2028 timeframe currently for this spacecraft. Mm-hmm. I think 2028 is how far Russia has committed to the ISS. NASA wants to keep it going to 2030, or they've committed to 20. Either way, there's a couple years in there. They'll probably be committed all the way till 2030. So at this point, it kind of looks like Oriole is going, if they manage to have a completed spacecraft, it kind of looks like it's only going to be able to supply the Ross station, which is going to be their polar orbit station, which they launched to out of Vostochny, where we're initially with Soyuz, but Oriole is kind of going to be the next step up for that. And it's a more, should I say, it's similar to the American capsules that we've seen.
More traditional capsule.
Yeah, so Soyuz, you'll know there's a descent module and an orbital module. They've kind of combined all of these together into one module, and this is what you see on your screen.
There is some cool stuff, though. Oh, go ahead,
Is that size for 3 people?
It is initially going to have 3 people, but with a little bit of rearranging of the seats, they eventually want to have 6 people.
What?
Yeah. So there are going to be 3 people that are lined up, kind of similar to how you see things in the Dragon capsule. And what they're going to do, I wish I had a good visualization of this prepared, but they're essentially going to be feet to feet so that they can fit 6 people in that way. And unlike the Dragon capsule, the chairs aren't going to swivel around. They're all going to be in the same position. What you're seeing on screen, that is their landing system. So the Soyuz capsule has a couple of solid rocket motors that fire at just the last second right before it hits the ground, because they do ground recovery in Kazakhstan. Mongolia, excuse me.
Disney has nothing on Russian concepts of personal space.
Definitely not. But it is a little bit of a larger capsule, so there is a bit more room inside of there than there is with the normal Soyuz capsule. But I think it's interesting that with their landing system for this, it does have a couple of landing legs to hopefully try to eliminate the problems of the capsule rolling sometimes or hitting at a weird angle where it hits like on the side and then the astronauts are just kind of hanging in place until the recovery team comes over. But they have been working on it. I mean, there is hardware that exists for this, and right now the current plan is to launch it on the Angara 5P, which is kind of like the Angara Super Heavy. It has 4 of the Angara boosters to it. This right here is the propulsion module for it. That they are going to be using a kind of the similar types of fuel and engines that they use on the Fregat and Breeze M upper stages. Here's the fuel tanks that are going to be inside of that propulsion module. Just a cool shot of where the main parachutes are going to go on the side of the capsule itself. And then in this picture, in the right-hand corner there, that is actually a payload fairing that is going to cover up the service module and its solar panels. They've already done tests with the solar panels to get that working. So there's a lot of stuff that is ready for it. And they're ready to start doing the next levels of testing, but obviously funding for the Russian space program is extremely low and very low on the priority list of things that they intend to accomplish in the next coming year. So this program, although it's been designed and around for many years, it's how do I say this? It keeps getting redesigned and simplified so that they can have a realistic program, so to speak, and actually be able to accomplish it. It's gone from like 3 different rockets that they were going to launch this thing on to finally going back to the Angara 5P. And they have set up launch pads at Vostochny to be able to launch this, but just recently came to an agreement with Kazakhstan to be able to launch this from Baikonur. So a little bit of pad work is going to begin on that soon so that they can be able to launch from Baikonur as well, which is a lot more useful to them if they do use it for the International Space Station. Otherwise, if they only launch it from Vostochny, then it'll only serve the Ross space station in polar orbit.
Yeah. I also just want to bring up again, how long this space capsule has been around. It initially kind of began life as a collaboration with ESA using some of their ATV technology. The ATV has been retired for years at this point. This is how old this capsule is. The collaboration ended because of geopolitical reasons a long while ago, but ESA's part of the collaboration has been retired, and yet Russia is still working on this capsule.
Actually, I disagree with that. It wasn't retired. It was repurposed to be a collaboration with the Americans. It's the European service module for the Orion capsule.
Okay, you can put it that way.
Tomato.
I wasn't trying to do a get you there. It was just I found that interesting.
So what's actually happened is ESA's collaboration with Roscosmos to create Oriole has turned into ESA's collaboration with NASA in order to create the European service module for the Orion missions to the moon. I mean, everything's going to come full circle at some point. I don't know, but there you go. TLDR, this spacecraft has been around for ages. Obviously. New spacecraft is cool, but this has been a new spacecraft for 15 years at this point, so it's taking a little while. But yeah, as Aravel says in chat, it's good to see progress, but if this flies crew before 2035, they will be super shocked. Building a crew capsule takes a lot of money, which Roscosmos is a little short on right now, and so not only is there the geopolitical reasons, which is why the collaboration with ESA fell through, there's also of course, the sanctions because of Russia's war in Ukraine, and then obviously Russia will want to be directing government funds towards fighting the war and not towards the space program. So not only are they getting sanctioned, but they don't want to spend money on the space program. So Roscosmos is really, they're just the entire Russian space economy at the moment is really struggling for obvious reasons.
Yeah. I love Aravel's other comment. Sorry for messing with the comments there, Dada, but yeah. So does this mean that Orion is Orel derived? That's great. Oh, and a while ago, I wanted to mention, too, that Toby Woby has become a member. Thank you very much for your support, bro. Thank you. Oh, man. So do we want to talk about Starship and some of the leaked updates that we got?
Wow. Elon. We now know that Elon enjoys playing some Diablo during the
That's so
SpaceX
wild.
Starship review meetings, and probably inadvertently posted recorded audio of this meeting. He seems to have realised what he has done quickly and like replied to a few comments from his post. I'm not sure if he did actually intend to post the audio in the first place, but he's left it up. He hasn't deleted it, so
Right.
it's kind of fair game at this point. The two biggest things that were interesting to me at least is that we were 1 second away from a healthy booster aborting a catch because it thought something was wrong, which would have been 1 second away is like incredibly close. The second thing is that the piece of the chine that ripped off, apparently underneath that area, which was then exposed, there are a bunch of single point of failure valves. Single point of failure valves that could have ended the mission
Yeah.
underneath that
Very
one piece of
important
chine
points.
that was ripped off. I mean, that's just crazy.
What is it? The
Single
James
points
Webb
of failure.
Space Telescope?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Look, they were a second away from losing the super heavy booster, and they then had this chine part rip off that exposed a bunch of single points of failure, which is not fantastic.
Yeah. But, I mean, I guess it goes to show how impressive that last flight was. I mean, that close to failure, and they still were able to pull everything off, and everything still went okay. And even with that chine coming off, those points of single point failure were okay. So, yes, they might have gotten incredibly lucky, but I think that's what Flight 6 is about. Even though it might be the same flight profile as Flight 5, it's just kind of can we do this again, and can we eliminate all the different needs of what we need to do in order to have a faster turnaround. Let's see here. What is this, Dada? I can't see this right now.
This apparently, according to Reddit, is a transcription of the conversation of what was said.
So yeah, you can get it word for word.
Not immediately. I want to be really upfront about the scary shit that happened and what we're doing about it, because I think that's our focus getting to Flight 6. Like, as Mark talked about, really trying to focus on booster risk reduction versus ship on-load expansion. So kind of in chronological order, on the landing burn, we had a misconfigured spin gas aboard that didn't have quite the right ramp-up time for bringing up spin pressure. And we were 1 second away from that tripping and telling the rocket to abort and try to crash into the ground next to the tower instead of the tanker. So how does a rocket erroneously tell a healthy rocket to not try to catch? Yeah, it's really difficult to read like Elon, but yeah, you can find that if you're interested in digging.
Yeah, and there's I mean, even if you just go to Elon Musk's Twitter, you can find the post for it, which kind of makes me mad because I'm just like, I don't want to watch your Diablo gameplay on the off chance that we're going to get some SpaceX updates. Like, Ryan, you're the one who tipped me off that he leaked this information. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And then I found it. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. On your Diablo gameplay? Well, before we get into our main topic, Jared, do you want to give us an update on some of the work that you've done over the past 2 weeks? Where are we sitting with that?
Gosh. It was like the payoff that you've been waiting years for, except I've been waiting like a literal decade and a half in order to do that. And for those of you who don't know...
That's how long it's been in storage, right?
Yeah, well, that's how long we've been fighting for it to get out of storage. I'm off the clock, so I could talk about the fact that, introduced to it in 2009, started coming on board in about 2010 to work on it, got it out thanks to the city working with it in 2012, stuck around with it. Around 2013 is when the city council was basically like, publicly, we enjoy this. Privately, no, we're not supporting you. So, got to get that good photo op, handshake, thumbs up, support the troops, throw them out, basically. And then I left at that point, and then it got put back in storage in 2014. And I was pretty much convinced that it was never going to come out. And then it did come out eventually. And it turns out it just came out about 2 weeks ago. And of course, you may be wondering, well, what's coming out? And it's not myself. That happened a long time ago. But it is indeed our space shuttle mock-up that we have, our space shuttle, or the space shuttle project, I guess is what everybody in the chat room is calling it nowadays. But here is a great shot of my child right there, as you can see her rolling through. So her name is Space Shuttle Inspiration. I prefer to call her OV-001. Because that is the first space shuttle that was ever built by North American Rockwell back in April of 1972. I have found out some really cool stuff about it, which is that we knew that it had been built in secret in order to impress NASA bigwigs that were going to be coming through the North American Rockwell plant in 1972. What I did not know was that, and I learned this from several folks who were there that actually worked on the mock-up. In fact, one of the heads of building the mock-up in 1972 was present. His name's Pete. Awesome guy. It took them 8 weeks to make that. So that was it.
Wow.
They built a full-size, 1-to-1 scale space shuttle, outside and inside, out of wood and plastic in 8 weeks. And that was so exciting to hear tidbits like that nobody had really ever heard before. And then just said straight up to the public on a stage in front of a whole bunch of folks. So I really enjoyed that. And as you could see, it was a spectacular thing to see transporting her to her new home. So we literally moved her about 3 blocks. We thought it was going to take 2 days. It ended up taking roughly about 5 hours to move all of the parts. So we ended up, we did something that does not happen in aerospace very often, which is that we finished ahead of schedule. And on
you moved schedule to the left?
We moved schedule to the left by a lot. So it's almost like
space program we want to see.
Yeah, it's like if saying IFT-6 is going to launch in November, and then you come on and you say, actually, here's footage of it launching in August. So
I think you might have. I think you might have been cheating a little bit by being able to break it up into pieces, but you did better than California Science Center did moving Endeavor.
Okay, well, I'm not going to throw any shade at the California Science Center for moving Endeavor, and Detta, you shouldn't either.
They were both part of that.
Shouldn't. Yeah. And I still enjoy the fact that I now have moved 3 space shuttles in my life, which is really, really fun. And actually, I have a special patch that I got made specifically for that, which I'll show off in the member stream if you would like to see it. But as you can imagine, it was such a sweet day to have that out with the huge crowds that were around us, getting it set inside of there. I literally got to write things that I never thought I would ever write on the side of a space shuttle. You know, like I literally wrote like attach crew cabin here on the side of the shuttle. It's on some account wherever I'm at now on social media, and it was just an absolutely fantastic day, and I'm so excited that it happened. And boy, did I need the vacation that I took this week after it in order to just not remember anything and relax a bit.
Yeah.
So
just a little bit of expanded context for why that shuttle was created. Rockwell was chosen as prime contractor, and there was the NASA and the U.S. Air Force and all the people that were having input on what the design should be. We're still waffling about what the design should be, and Rockwell's like, dude, you guys have deadlines coming up. Like we need to like settle on this and get going. And so they picked what they thought was going to be the best execution of the concept, and kind of narrowed it down. And they built that mock-up because they had a funding meeting, or there was somebody that was from NASA that was going to be there, and they wanted to surprise them with it and go, look, see, pull your heads out of your asses and let's get this thing going. But we need to stop the design churn so that we can do that. And so they use that as a tool to leverage having been selected and the time that was remaining to be able to execute. I think they wanted to have this flying before like 1978 or 76. So that they, they're like, hey, it takes a long time to build a brand new vehicle. Let's settle on the design and make minor tweaks as we go. But like, we need to get the general shape done. And so they used this as a tool to do that. And it was obviously quite successful. There's a couple distinct differences, though. A couple things about it that are different from what they eventually produced, and it's fascinating to see what those little changes are.
This mock-up literally sold it to NASA and probably Congress too.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just an incredible thing that we can't wait to put out in front of the public. It's going to probably take about 2 years for us to restore it. Like I said, we're going to be putting it back on public display probably late 2026, early 2027. We basically are going to wait for the new building at the Columbia Memorial Space Center to be built, and then we'll move the shuttle again. I've been told by my boss that we're going to take the long route around, and that's going to be a fun day. That will be a longer move than just a day in order to do that. But what? Ooh,
Dada, yeah, book recommendation book there
for anybody that's interested in where that information comes from.
Development
that's not
of the
my
space
shuttle.
1972.
That's too small.
1981.
No, but this talks about your shuttle. It's a very, very small piece of the history, but it was very significant.
Yeah, and we think it's maybe one of the most important shuttles because you wouldn't have space shuttles without ours. So, and one thing that we've been really drumming up, because we don't want to poo-poo Endeavour or anything. Endeavour's amazing. We love Endeavour. And Endeavour was the last space shuttle ever built. We have the first space shuttle ever built. So if you come and visit Los Angeles in a couple years, you're going to be able to see the bookends of the shuttle program. You're going to be able to see the concept that started it. Like, what were they intending the shuttle to be? And then you're going to be able to see what the actual shuttle was. In its, I would consider Endeavour to be the peak performance of space shuttles. Like, this is the tippy top tier of what shuttle was meant to be, simply because of the fact that it was last in its design work. Therefore, they were able to put all the good things into it. But, we'll see. We're talking about ours, allowing you inside of it, because obviously you can't do that with Endeavour, so 'cause it's a museum piece. So ours, like, we don't have the Smithsonian telling us what we can and can't do with our mock-up. So therefore, we can kind of bless the Smithsonian and their people. But there's, yeah, like, we have an Apollo boilerplate and we were going to move it, but it's technically under the ownership of the Smithsonian, and the Smithsonian was like, oh, well, I don't know if we can let you do that. We have to review all the things. And we were like, well, if we move it now, we could save $500,000 moving it. And they were like, well, isn't that a shame? We still have to approve of everything. And it was like, all right, we'll leave it where it's at. So we got to wait for them. I don't want to poo-poo the Smithsonian either, because they're amazing.
Meanwhile, the gardeners bump into it with their lawnmowers every week.
Yeah, I hope not. Oh, it's not that one. It's not that. It's not boilerplate 12 out front of the center. It's we have another boilerplate 19. So yeah, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. It was a very good day, very tiring day, but the culmination of so much work. And if you go on my Twitter account at Jared Head, for however long that will remain, you can see some of the photos that I took while inside of the mock-up as well, because that it has an interior, it has a crew cabin, it has a mid-deck. We checked everything, and after being under Tyvek for a decade, we were expecting the worst. I mean, I went in on Monday the Monday of unwrapping everything 3 days before moving it, I was convinced that I needed to be prepared to deliver the news that it is in such bad condition that we cannot move it from its present position. And when we unwrapped it, it was exactly the same as it was a decade ago. So no critters inside, no termite damage, no wood rot, no nothing, no plastic delamination, no further cracking on the materials. It was, man, whoever did it, ended up finding out it was a local roofing company that wrapped it up. They nailed it exactly as it was supposed to be. So,
Tyvek ain't messing around.
No, it ain't. And all of us now have a piece of that Tyvek, which is great. I love that. And I have a couple pieces of the shuttle that they removed from the Tyvek holding it and things like that. So some mementos. But to me, the big memento is that the shuttle's where it needs to be right now, so we can start the restoration. And I'm really looking forward to when we allow the public to come in and watch us do the restoration process.
Very cool.
And that to me is going to be the really cool part of it. So
Yeah, very cool. I'm very much looking forward to that. That's going to be awesome.
yeah, we'll have to do a factory tour. Like we were talking.
Yeah, we were talking before the show.
Before
Yeah,
the show. You know, since Everyday Astronaut gets to tour things like Starbase and the Blue Origin factory, I gotta hook you up with a tomorrow space shuttle restoration factory floor tour, which you'll just be like, wow, look at all this. It's like gravel and dirt ground, and we'll be like, yeah, because it soaks it all up really well. So
and thankfully, because it's just a mock-up, we won't have to blur anything out.
No, I don't think so. No,
I would hope not.
All the stuff would be gone by now, considering it was used for like public PR up to 1999.
Right.
I don't think they would have allowed people to take.
Although
kept the stuff there.
when Russia did their espionage and copied all the space shuttle plans, do you think it was them taking a tour through this and copying the mock-ups from this?
Maybe. I mean, it was also. A lot of Buran was basically physics dictates this shape as opposed, it's like everybody's saying, oh, look at all these Falcon 9 copies. It's like, yeah, well, what else? How else are you supposed to do it? Like
when you're solving
nature
the same
does
math
not
problem,
allow it.
When you're solving the same math problem, it turns out you can easily arrive at the same result.
Yeah, who knew 1 + 1 = 2? I'm so mad when other people use 1 + 1 = 2 to find what 2 actually is. Pisses me off like you wouldn't believe. So my blood boils.
Regular math or core math, you'll get the same answer.
According to
something like that.
Wikipedia, Columbia was the heaviest orbiter at 179,900 pounds. Challenger was second at 177,700. And Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour all were 172,000 pounds dry weight.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I was looking for that Endeavour to be the pinnacle of performance as one of the lightest, but it's one of the 3 lightest.
Yeah, well, it's Endeavour. I love her. So I love them all, but I love obviously my heart inspiration has my heart the most. So
have you been to Florida since they put in Atlantis's display?
No.
Okay.
That one's my favorite, and the only one I ever got to see live launch. Yeah, the only one I ever got to see in person. So that one holds a special place in my heart, and that's the only reason why. Nothing else about the vehicle itself.
Yeah,
well, I think it's really nice you can do this. It's really nice you can do this tour now because you can start off in LA and you can see Inspiration. You'll be able to see Endeavour. You fly to Orlando. You can see Atlantis on display, like in space.
You go to New York first.
Okay, yeah, okay. Start in New York to see Enterprise, then fly to LA to see Endeavour. In the launch position, and then you fly to Florida to see Atlantis in space. And they saved the best till last, because if you then fly to Virginia, you can see Discovery will stop on the runway at the end of the mission. So I think it's a really nice tour you can do there to see this. They obviously saved the best till last.
That's awesome.
Sure,
That'd be
it's okay to be wrong. I mean, we're going to display inspiration in wheel stop. So
that's gonna be
that's
so
how we're
cool.
going to display her. So that should be cool.
Well, should we move on to our main topic of today and have a discussion? Because I really want to get your guys' opinions and get the opinions of our chat as well. Some may take this as good news, some may take this as bad news. But Boeing, troubled Boeing, has expressed interest in selling off portions of their space business. Wall Street Journal, which isn't to be trusted, put out a report, and basically their new CEO, who came most recently from Collins Aerospace, and also during that time got out of the astronaut suit production. So I don't know if maybe they're anti-space or not. Maybe not, because they've had their career in space, so it'd be weird if they were. But in any case, they're looking to get rid of Starliner and ISS operations support for sure, but also had a caveat that nothing is off the table if they were to find a correct buyer. So, Jared, I'd like to get your opinions first. What do you think about this? Because I've got some thoughts, but I want to know what the both of you think and everyone. But yeah, what do you think about this, Jared?
So for Starliner, I really wasn't surprised. Last night I was actually doing a science demonstration at a like Halloween science event for kids, and I had a rocket and it wasn't really working all that well. And somebody from the crowd yelled out, "Is your costume Boeing this year?" Because it just wasn't working correctly. So, haha. So if you're wondering where in the public zeitgeist Boeing currently lies, it is not in a good place. And Starliner is definitely leading the charge in their spaceflight division of things not looking good. 737 MAX also not exactly fantastic either in the public perception of things, rightly so. That's complicated, but I was not shocked at all about hearing that they want to dump Starliner. I thought Starliner was going to be dumped years ago. I thought after the second test flight and they were having problems with it still, that they were going to dump it at that point. I was very surprised when they decided to go ahead with the crewed flight test. I don't know if that was just because they had egg on their face and they wanted to try to clean it off. Now, of course, we know that they've had the whole chicken coop fall on their face with that. And
Weird analogy, but okay.
Hey, it's not just the egg on their face now. Everything's fallen on their face. The whole floor has come out from below them. I figured Starliner would be up for grabs, that they would just either dump it or hand it off to somebody and say, problem child is now yours. Here's all the stuff. Please take it away from me. But I was not expecting to hear them talking about doing the space station operations that they're doing to be handed, to give that away. I was not expecting to hear about like their whole satellite division wanting to give that away, because like you look at things like their satellite division hasn't exactly done a bad job recently. They've done pretty good on that front. You look at, there is a caveat with something we're going to talk about in just a second, right?
Yeah.
And they managed the X-37, for goodness sakes. Like, that is a
That's still going strong.
That is a well-run program, no doubt about it. Like, there are no, I would think I think it'd be very hard to find anybody looking at the X-37 and saying garbage. I don't think I'd be able to take a person like that very seriously. And the space station as well. The space station has done, for what the space station is, and for how the space station has had to clear political hurdle after another, after geopolitical hurdle after another as well. Like, it was really tough to get the whole international community on board. But if you look at the history of space stations here in the United States, if you go back to with Space Station Alpha and you look, and then Space Station Freedom, and you look at the things that had to happen for the International Space Station to even be considered, and then the battle that occurred for that as well, And Boeing was in the mix on that. Like, they were at the forefront of that battle. And now they're just going to give up something that they've done and executed so well on. Like, man, that surprised me. So,
Ryan, give me some of your thoughts
yeah,
about this. I'd like to know some of your thoughts about this as well, because, this has just been something else. What do you think? I mean, at this point, do they actually have a lot more to offer? And would it be like copyright stuff with their station modules? Or is it literally just the support for if there's a problem with any of their issues on the station? And what do you think about some of the other aspects of their space business as well? Sorry,
I'll be honest.
To dump on you.
Yeah, I'm kind of sitting similar to Jared on those things. It's Starliner morale. I can imagine would be poor at the moment, and I can see, I can understand why Boeing would want to hand off the Starliner business, but all of those other, they have a great satellite business, asterisk the Intelsat thing. They have they have a great space military business. There are space sectors where Boeing executes really, really well. Starliner has just been one of these. It just hasn't worked for them. They just haven't been able to work in the fixed price environment. The SLS core stage, for example, Boeing has had issues at Michoud, as the NASA, or not, but the Government Accountability Office or whatever has highlighted. Mm-hmm. But Boeing is still they're still manufacturing components for SLS, right? So, I could potentially see Starliner not. Maybe this whole thing has just been reported poorly or branded poorly. I don't think Starliner would be the headline thing Boeing getting rid of. Maybe Boeing wants to sell off a really exciting part of their business, and you get Starliner on the side.
Right?
Maybe they're just maybe they're just trying to squeeze Starliner into a deal, a really sweet deal. By the way, do you want Starliner? Here you go. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. I would understand why Boeing would want to hand off Starliner to someone else. I struggle to see why someone would want to buy Starliner, though. It's had many issues over many years, over many flights, and but they have recurring issues as well, such as with thrusters. So, it's a difficult buy for me to see.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And the interesting thing about their satellite business, I mean, they're in a kind of a big bit of trouble right now. I do want to pull up a quick animation. Their Intelsat 33 that they built for Intelsat exploded in geostationary orbit on October 19th, and initially they were only tracking 20 pieces. This is a animation of ISON, which is an international collaboration of tracking satellites. And right now, although there was only 20 pieces initially, there are some reports that are saying they're seeing as many as 800 pieces of debris in geostationary orbit. That's an extremely high orbit that orbits the planet at the same speed that the planet is rotating, so that they can be in the same position in the sky relative to the ground. And now there's at least 6 other active satellites in geostationary orbit that are at risk of being hit by this debris. And you can see that as the pieces move around, they kind of do the weird movements that planets take when looking at them from the ground. And so when they're coming around, because they're getting put into these different spots, there's a lot of risk there. And Russia is especially concerned because I think 4 out of the 6 that are at risk right now are theirs, of the satellites that are at risk of being hit by this debris from Intelsat 33. So that's a kind of a big thing. And this happened already a couple of years earlier before for the same series of satellites. Their satellite bus is the 702, sometimes the 720 series, and they've been having problems with it. And it seems like the same type of problems that's been plaguing all of their programs. Kind of crappy work, not as much oversight, cost plus contracts if they can get it. And, it just seems like there's a lot of nonsense going on within Boeing. I mean, there's really only one person at Boeing who I still like, am rooting for, and that's John Mulholland, just because he's a true space fan and has been trying to push the space development side for quite a while. And I think it was, what was it, maybe 3 years ago, he became the president of the Starliner division. But for most of its development, he was kind of on the sidelines being like, guys, this is what we need to do, and just being ignored. So I guess we need to talk about who we might think could be a potential buyer. And there was a tweet thread before we speculate that I wanted to mention that Dave Maston actually was talking about, and Dave Maston of Maston Aerospace, who has recently left Astrobotic and is on his own again and is getting the itch to do all sorts of rocketry stuff again. It was really funny. There was a thing where he said, I'm willing to bid, counts cash and wallet, $50. And Joe Barnard from BPS Space is like, I'll propose 55. And Dave Maston was like, well, I'm out. Too rich for me.
$1, Bob.
Yeah.
Right. So.
But Dave Maston did bring up a good point of, I'm willing to consider it, and anyone might be willing to consider it if it comes with a couple of things. If it comes with the satellite business, if it comes with some of the kind of side project stuff that they've done, like are they thinking about getting rid of Millennium Space? And honestly, even that whole thing, although it was really cool when it first got started, has been extremely slow, even though it's supposed to be rapidly developed CubeSats, and it's taken them years to do just a single one-unit CubeSat. So, whatever. But if Boeing's shares in United Launch Alliance come with the deal, so that kind of at least a part of United Launch Alliance can be utilized, then maybe it could be an attractive deal. So, let's speculate. Who on Earth could actually be a good buyer for this program? Ryan, do you want to go first? What do you think?
My initial thought for that would be Blue Origin. I'm not sure 100% why Blue Origin would want Starliner, but orbital flight and suborbital flight are two very different things. So perhaps they would want to buy a proven capsule, not proven in the fact that Starliner has been able to fulfill its NASA contract to deliver astronauts to the International Space Station and bring them home, but it's proven as a capsule. It can go to the International Space Station and it can survive re-entry and it can land in the desert, right? Starliner is proven in that sense. So maybe Blue would want the engineering details behind being able to create an orbital craft. I don't know. I'm sure the Blue engineers would be able to do it on their own. Maybe having a proven vehicle to pull data from would be beneficial in speeding up the timeline for that, because Blue Origin has Orbital Reef, which is their space station plans. So maybe they would want their own crew vehicle to get there rather than relying on Dream Chaser. And Starliner is in the Orbital Reef renders like concept. So maybe those things could go together there. And Blue would also, I think, potentially be interested in the ULA deal there, because those two names have been rumoured in the past with a separate ULA sale. So I would certainly see some crossover in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Seb SN agrees with you. There's also a space station module that Boeing was supposed to be building to supply for Orbital Reef. So I agree with you that makes a lot of sense if they want to continue with that program to have all that stuff in there. But, I feel like they would need to, if they were to do that, it would make the most sense for them to try to fly Starliner on Vulcan and help ULA get that human-rated certification going, which I'm sure they would eventually want to do anyway if there was more of a market for Starliner, instead of trying to fly it on New Glenn, because if they did it on New Glenn, it would be hilariously too small for the New Glenn rocket. The New Glenn rocket would be immensely overpowered for Starliner and its service module. Jared, what do you think? Do you think, aside from Blue Origin, do you think that there's any other buyers out there that this would make sense for?
I don't think Blue Origin would actually be interested at all. I think that they're very much focused on their own things, and I also think Blue Origin, even though the ULA Blue Origin deal may be off of the table publicly, I still think that there's probably ruminations occurring in the back halls of the business areas, as it were. I would just be very surprised up until the last minute if ULA does get purchased by someone else that Blue Origin's not a part of that, considering that ULA is already a Blue Origin customer in some respects. But I'm going to go with our dark horse that we like to talk about here, which is Sierra Space. I think that they would have a really big... Oh, yep, there you go. So
Couple
our
people
chat room
agree with
hitting
you
it up
here in the chat.
with that there, because Sierra just announced that they are starting their own satellite business earlier this year, that they have 3 buses that they're going to be working with. So, you could buy Boeing Space in defense and end up getting that IP that you can then convert into doing your own buses. Find the good stuff and keep the good. Find the bad stuff, kick the bad stuff to the curb as it needs to be. So that's one way you could do it. Also, Sierra is definitely working on their own modules as well, inflatable modules, right? They're leading the charge on that. I feel like that is going to be a very significant thing for human spaceflight in the future, both in terms of orbital spaceflight, free spaceflight, and surface as well, surface missions and things like that. So you can have Starliner. If you want to keep Starliner around, you can do that. You can have that as a potential driver of people to your module, and then use Dream Chaser cargo for your cargo that you need to have to bring up and to bring back down. And it's one of those things where it just feels like it fits both fit very nicely with each other. And Sierra very much wants to move very fast. Boeing's got all the stuff that they would just hand over in a heartbeat, and a lot of it to me lines up with what Sierra wants. And yeah, a few months ago we thought that Sierra was going to buy ULA, and yeah, we're just a big fan. I gotta say, I don't know about you, but I'm a big fan of a dark horse, no matter how they're operating and what they're operating in. And I just love the fact that there's this, I don't want to call Sierra a little company, because they really aren't. But there's this company that you just wouldn't expect.
Good
And here they
idea,
come.
Jacob Bouchard. Mark
So-
Zuckerberg, he probably feels left out. Yeah, come on, bro. You want to get into the space business? You got the money for it. I know you do.
Yeah. Everyone will
awesome.
love you for it. So everyone will love you more than they already do.
Mystic Wolf, Sierra buying either gets them a lot of access and contracts that they then wouldn't have to build out. Yeah, absolutely. And a member of our team brought up a good point. Don't forget about the possibility that their products are worthless to anyone, but their assets could be useful and cost effective to sell off, liquidate, and repurpose. I 100% agree with that. It's more about, and Aravel brings up a good point too, having the engineers themselves and their experience would probably be the biggest boon. A lot of engineers have already kind of been poached and are either working at Blue Origin already or at SpaceX, but their facilities, the amount of tooling that they have, the factories that they have for, some of the Starliner production stuff, the satellite production stuff, and even whatever type of mission operations that they still have for the International Space Station. I mean, that team right there, if you want to do space station stuff, it to me would be extremely valuable if I had the money to buy this. And maybe they're not even asking for money. There might be a possibility that what they're asking for is for a buyer to assume their debts and their contract obligations, because they have a contractual obligation. And, there's penalties if they aren't able to do that stuff. So, it might be a kind of an interesting thing there. I see a lot of comments of, Elon Musk just to cancel the thing. That would be hilarious. Dave Avery, Astra with their new money. They did just get thrown a lifeline by the Space Force, $44 million. So
yeah. I'm just here. Breaking news, everybody. Arcaspace has put in a bid for Boeing. Arcaspace has put in a bid for Boeing. Company. They've said $100 and several gallons of water. So
that would be hilarious. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Mr. Huggy, this is a good point. Right now, Boeing isn't selling their commercial satellite business. They're selling the parts that are losing money on ISS and Starliner, but keeping the rest. And their CEOs even said they want to focus on just being an airplane company because that is the biggest moneymaker for them. Not just the commercial airplanes, but all of the military airplanes and helicopters. That's a really big one too. I mean, where I am in Arizona, this is where they test all of their rotorcraft. So I see a lot of that type of stuff here all the time.
I was also going to say, don't forget that Boeing does a lot of missile work and a lot of ground-based defense work as well. So
and that's the part that I want.
This is, man, when you do defense work, you need to put your fingers in all of the pies that you can, and you got 10 of them. So
absolutely,
get as many as you got, baby. So.
Absolutely. And I mean, right now, the Space Force's annual budget is like $3 billion more than NASA right now. NASA's getting $26 billion for this fiscal year, and Space Force got $29 billion for this fiscal year, and has something like 3 or 4 different technology funding departments. So, why not? Impulse Space has been getting some of those military contracts. Sierra Space has been getting some of those contracts. Whoa, Dave Avery just gifted 5 Tomorrow memberships. Thank you very much, Dave Avery. And now 5 of you folks can join us in the after show as well. Boeing's problem is going to be the people who stay at Boeing. And that could be a whole other issue in itself because their strike, they had a worker strike that has been extended and still hasn't been resolved. So I think a lot of things, and most of that is with the airplane side of things, but a lot of things are at a standstill. I would like to speculate about something. If we are talking about dark horses, Airbus. Airbus has a United States office and is able to bid on our American DoD contracts because they have, an office set up and it's only, being run by Americans who have security clearances and all that sort of ITAR stuff in order to have it done. But if Airbus were to get their hands on that stuff, maybe they could turn around because Airbus is a, conglomerate, but I guess kind of based in Germany, but they have stuff all over the place in Europe. They could then utilize Starliner, make some improvements, launch it on Ariane 6, and provide Europe with their own crew capability. I don't know. Probably couldn't happen, but the legal aspect of it is already set up. For other European companies like Thales Alenia Space or Ariane Space, I don't think that they have that sort of legal setup where they have some sort of headquarters in the United States with security clearance with Americans working for them in order to, do something like that. But Airbus might, and that would be a really interesting development. I haven't heard anything. This is just a 100% speculation, but maybe it'd be cool.
I want PLD Space to buy them now.
Yeah, PLD Space. That would be crazy.
Maybe.
What were you gonna say, Ryan?
I think that would certainly be interesting, and Airbus is a proven manufacturer in the US now. Like, they have facilities to manufacture aircraft in the US. They have kind of started to beat Boeing quite considerably as of late in the commercial aircraft market. So I'm not sure whether Boeing, in a pride sense, like, what is their desire more? Would they rather be seen as getting, completely beat by Airbus, or would they rather get rid of Starliner? Like, which one matters to them more, the PR or just getting rid of Starliner? That would be what is interesting to me. But Airbus operating Starliner, I mean, it'd be interesting. TM.
Yeah, definitely. Real quick, thank you to Josh Simpson for another 5 gifted Tomorrow Space memberships. Thank you very much.
I think in order to have pride in something, and pride cometh before the fall, there is something you have to have in order to be prideful about. And right now, there's not much at Boeing for them. So.
And I mean, it'd be hard. I mean, this is a good point. You would love to have a return flight path if that took place. They would snag it for sure if they could get around ITAR. But I think that you're right, Jared, that it is a pride issue. I'm sure if that were to happen in this hypothetical, they would market it as the European crew capsule, but developed by Boeing. So there is that kind of national pride or European pride, EU pride, whatever you want to call it.
It would be like the baseball team here in LA, the Angels, where they wanted to market to Los Angeles, but they still had a contract with the city of Anaheim. So they got around it by naming themselves the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. And it's still one of the worst sounding names of anything ever.
Hey, whatever works.
The Airbus Starliner of Boeing Space Division.
Launched on Ariane 6.
Yes.
I don't know. Could be kind of cool. Could be kind of cool.
Breaking news in our chat room.
Yeah. No purchase from Copenhagen suborbitals.
Suborbitals.
Come on, guys. The current bidding is only $55 by BPS Space. That's all you have to beat right now. Put out a better offer than that. They might consider it. Come on, Copenhagen. Don't let me down
I
like that.
will bid a fake $10 or 10 ruble. Is this a Chinese ruble note? Yeah, I think I'll bid this. I'll bid this.
Copenhagen suborbitals.
So-
While we have you here, I would love to get an update on your guys' stuff. I know there's been a lot of shakeup over the years, but it seems like you guys are getting back on track and are offering tours. Definitely would be hard for me to get over there right now, but would love to see what you guys have going on and whether or not you plan to continue with is it the Tycho 2 capsule? Is the larger capsule, not the stand-up one? You guys aren't going to do that anymore.
And not Starliner either.
Not style.
I'll go for a ride. I will go for a ride.
Oh, man. I've wanted to go
I'd
on
go
a
for
ride
a
on
ride
that
in the
thing since the
stand-up
first time I
capsule.
saw it.
I sign me up, baby. Strap me in. I'm ready to go.
Oh, man.
I don't know. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Oh,
Aside
man.
from that, unless there is some, billionaire out there that wants to take this over, or who would be interested? The Russians. If we didn't have all these sanctions, the Russians would probably want to buy this stuff. But I
Just
don't know.
replace Oriole with Starliner. I mean, it's already flown to space.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody say JS Web Productions say Mark Cuban. That would be pretty funny, honestly.
Current capsule booster is Spica, mix between Tycho and the stand-up one. Interesting.
All
I need
right.
to look deeper into that again.
Well, sign us up. We're ready.
Heck yeah.
Test dummy number 1 right here. I'm good to go. So,
Oh, here we go. Here's a good idea. Josh Simpson acquires all 4 unused Starliner capsules and an old spinning theme park ride to turn it into the Starliner ride. There we go. We'll put it at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Center as one of the rides. Oh, man. But yeah, aside from that, I don't know if there is any other kind of serious contenders. And United Launch Alliance has, I don't know if they've seriously been pursuing looking for a buyer. I think that from the rumblings that I heard, which are just rumors, I don't know if these are confirmed, that ULA had found a couple people. They were in big talks with Bezos and Blue Origin, but Lockheed and Boeing didn't like the terms and were asking for too much money. So, I don't know if United Launch Alliance is still for sale or if they've given that up. And how crazy would it be if we just lost Jared for a second. How crazy would it be though if somehow Tory Bruno was able to pull off some sort of funding miracle and purchase the Boeing shares of the ownership of United Launch Alliance, and part of that deal would be getting Starliner. So that might be cool too. But yeah, Ryan, do you think there's any other realistic options out there for who might be willing to buy this?
No, I just think that the PR, the media, the whole stranded astronaut, they were never stranded. If you think that Butch and Sonny were stranded on the ISS, that means you have no confidence in SpaceX's Dragon, So, because that was their alternative. I just think the PR around Starliner has been so poor over the last few months. I just don't think, even if Starliner was the best spacecraft ever produced and it was efficient and cheap to operate, if you have such bad PR, that's essentially what you're buying. Why would you want to spend money to make your company's reputation worse? I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, you brings up a good point. United Launch Alliance really doesn't have a research segment. Boeing Research would give them that. Yeah, that's true. And yeah, maybe as Robert Allen points out, for someone to buy Starliner, Boeing would have to cover the billions of debt. So, yeah, there's kind of interesting things. If there is anyone who I would want to see take it over and churn things around, it would definitely be Dave Maston. But all we can do is speculate. I think this has been fun. We will try to get Jared back for our members show, but I think that we should probably wrap things up and move over to there. Do want to give a huge thank you to all of our supporters, and we're going to need to update this soon. For everyone who has been joining us through YouTube and a member here, we're going to start having some more members-only content soon, and a few things that I've been playing around with. So again, huge thank you to everyone who is supporting us and allowing us to be able to continue and hopefully do some more really cool things in the very near future. So thank you very much for joining us today, talking about all the cool stuff that we thought was most interesting that happened in spaceflight this week. And we hope to see you guys again really soon next week. And please join us, especially those of you who were gifted a new membership, join us for the members only broadcast that should be happening in just a few moments. So again, thank you very much, and we will catch you guys next time. Bye.